that Saint Sebastian up there, the tiny one?
Yeah, St. Sebastian. I didn't know where to put it. It's such a small one. I didn't know where to put it, so I just put it there.
Yeah, that's a good spot. I love the Our Lady of Guadalupe.
Oh yeah, it's my favorite. I love Our Lady of Guadalupe so much, dude. Like, greatest apparition. So
Yeah.
I like Our Lady of Guadalupe more than Our Lady of Fatima.
Me too. I think like I have more of a like sentimental attachment to Our Lady of Guadalupe because I was born on December 12th.
Oh really?
Yeah, and so ever like since I was very young, I've had a devotion to her.
That's
And
awesome.
yeah, I pray at her side chapel almost every time I go into the church.
Really?
Yeah.
Man, yeah. I was thinking the other day. I really wanted to talk about some of the Old Testament stuff and prophecies and prophets and stuff like that. I don't really think I'm prepared or qualified to talk on it at the moment, but I was listening to a talk. I know I mentioned Friar Anthony a lot. I can't remember if it was Friar Anthony or if it was somebody else, but they were talking about. Oh man, I'm gonna make myself look really bad here. But one of the really interesting ones was the sign of Jonah.
Okay.
You know, and just like hearing him talk about Jonah and everything, I feel like I learned a lot. And I wish I would have taken notes on it because I really, really wanted to talk about it. Now it's been like a week or two, and it's leaving me. But you know, we often think of Jonah being alive in the stomach of the fish, right, for 3 days. Like he actually died. Like he went to Sheol, and he prayed, and so.
He actually died?
Yeah, he died. He went to Sheol.
How do we know that?
Because it says here he prayed from Sheol, which I think is.
Well, what does that mean?
Oh, Sheol. Yeah. Sheol is like Limbo of the Fathers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's like Limbo of the Fathers. So like he died and went to Sheol. If that makes sense.
Oh wow.
Again, I'm not really qualified to talk on it, so I'm just talking ball here.
Now. So.
Yeah, I was talking ball here, but it was really interesting how it was explained. I think maybe next week would be really good to freshen up. But so part of the sign of Jonah was dying and coming back to life, but there's a lot more to it than that. There's something else that was interesting when he went to Nineveh. It was really important that he was that he came from the ocean in a fish, because the people of Nineveh worshipped a god that was a fish man, and he was always depicted as a man coming from a fish, right? So he gets there and they're like, all right, this is him. Yeah. Whatever he says goes, and then all of a sudden he's able to, convert everybody. So that's really cool.
Well, that's fascinating because, like, God foresaw Jonah's weakness or his error of fleeing God's path for him, and he used that choice to actually be the source of on a natural level of conversion for this people, which is fascinating.
It's so cool.
Because if he had just sailed straight in a ship straight there, that wouldn't have, the whole fish thing wouldn't have happened.
Not at all.
So that's really interesting.
And when Christ rose, he brought all the Gentiles.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
There's a lot of parallels.
Yeah, exactly. And
3 days in a tomb.
Yeah, it's so cool, and that was really motivating. And the reason I was thinking about it the other day and why I wanted to go back and kind of talk about it, even though I really wasn't prepared with all the details of the talk, was I feel like for me over the past few months, maybe even a year or so, I almost feel like Jonah running away from God, trying to God has a calling, a job, a mission, whatever you want to say, and it's for whatever reason, fear, stress, anger, resentment, there's a lot of things, just kind of running away from that and maybe justifying why, oh no, that's not really what I'm supposed to do, or and a lot of it comes from outside pressure. I was talking to you earlier, just hearing and knowing what people say really influences me probably way more than it should. It's one of my biggest faults. And so, I found myself kind of being like Jonah in that way. And I was like, well, Jonah repented, and then went on and followed through with what God actually wanted him to do, and everything just worked out even better than it would have beforehand.
Right.
It was almost like, I don't think you can never say that like sinning or not following God's plan for you is ever a good thing, but it's almost like it is better. There's a better result, because he had that experience in a way. And yeah, I don't know. I feel like I'm in that phase of my life. Like I feel like I have a very different understanding of what God wants out of me today than I did 6 months ago or a year ago or something like that. It's like, oh, well, so-and-so thinks I should do this, so that's a really good idea, or so-and-so thinks that. Like, man, that's really bad. It's like, it's honestly pretty stupid. Like, who cares what other people have to say?
Right. Well, the church like prays, "Oh, happy fall," and that's I think more applied to like Adam and Eve's fall. But yeah, certainly that could be applied to Jonah. It can be applied to our own lives as well. And that's kind of how God works. It's like the mystery of God's mercy and love, and our state as human beings. You know, like our human nature being fallen, and kind of like the dynamic that we're in, our predicament as fallen human beings, needing a savior, and it's the nature of our condition, our world. So it's like so fascinating. Like that little example of Jonah is can be applied to like a lot of different aspects of everyone's life. Right? And yeah, certainly a lot of us find ourselves in a whale at some point.
Yeah.
And we're in the darkness in like a tomb or a whale or whatever. And it causes us to like really have to consider like certainly Jonah would have like really thought about some things and prayed about some things.
Yeah.
You know, like,
man, screwed up.
Dang.
Well, I'm thinking I can't do this. Yeah.
Right, but God's mercy puts us in the valley of the whale to help
That's right.
redirect us. You know.
That's right. We always focus so much on his mercy and his justice, right? But like, it seems like a lot of times we're very polarized in how we view it. We know they're totally in union with each other. His mercy and his justice are like they use a really liberal term, like they coexist. They can't not be completely there at all times. So his mercy and his justice, like we deserve the pain or the suffering. We owe to him to undergo some penance, but his mercy allows that penance, that suffering, to be efficacious, which he doesn't have to do. Right? Like, he doesn't owe us anything.
And the only way we're capable of having value to our actions is from God. Anyway. So it's
exactly.
I heard this fantastic story once, actually a few times, from the same priest, and he talked about our relationship with God as kind of like a child who wants to give his father something for Christmas, right? And but he has nothing, right? He's like looking for something. So what he does is he asks his mother for money to get something for his dad, and the money comes from the father. You know, back to the child. The child goes buys something, gives it to the father, and the father knows. The father like gave them the money to his wife, to the child, and that's exactly how our this reality works. It's a reality. Like, we have nothing at all, you know. And the things we have been given freely out of love, and it's only because the only reason why we can give back anything is because we've been given it to begin with, right? From the same source, right? So
including our own existence,
right.
Our existence, not like our living, not our life, but our like physically being real as matter is an effect. It's caused by God's active love. Like he's actively loving us in every moment of eternity. And if he were to ever stop, even for just a moment, everything would just cease to exist. It's like things wouldn't crumble and you know, we wouldn't just die, we'd just poof, right? Just disappear. Right. And so as you're talking about like, giving back to God what he gave us, we kind of owe our entire existence, our entire being to him. Because if it wasn't for his love of us, we would just not be. We just wouldn't be. It's kind of a lot to, you know, undertake. And that's why a lot of people say it's not really, or like a lot of maybe like theologians say it's not really accurate to say like God exists. Like he is that which gives existence.
Right.
You know, it's kind of maybe like a little bit semantical unless you're getting into like deep theological stuff. But that was really helpful for me because all of existence comes from him. Anyways, yeah.
Yeah, I certainly envy in a way people who have spent a lot of time studying philosophy, theology, like the priests and people who go to college and further their education, and they certainly have like such a deep understanding of like God, because there's like so much. There's an infinite amount there, right? And it's there's a lot of mysteries, things that we would receive in contemplation, no matter how hard you can study, you know. Yeah, it would be really interesting to like dive into a soul of a saint and like see how they understand God and like what God has shown to them through like prayer. But I guess that's a journey for each of us and everyone, you know.
It's what we're striving for every day, or we should be.
Right. Yeah. A lot of things are just given in contemplation, and obviously there's like the practical sides of like reading, spiritual reading and things, but just sitting in front of God.
Just there's some things that can only be revealed.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Some things you can't learn.
Say that. For sure.
I mean, Thomas Aquinas, right? That's why he stopped writing the Summa.
That's why he was about to throw it out, right?
Yeah. If I remember the story right, he was writing it and he had a vision of God from God, and basically something along the lines of like, you know, all of these works. I mean, he was like the greatest theologian in the world, probably of all history.
I'll stand behind that for sure.
You know what I mean? Like, I love Bonaventure as much as the next guy. You know, I love John Duns Scotus, but like, if we're being real here, old Thomas Aquinas, he's top of the game. So anyways, he gets this vision from God. So all this work, everything you've written, it's like, what do you say, like straw in the wind. Is not even a fraction. You could write for lifetimes. It wouldn't be a fraction of understanding God and understanding love and understanding mercy. And so he said, you know, all right, well, why am I doing this? This is dumb. But and it's not to say those things weren't good. Like the Summa is a great thing.
Yeah, we need this.
You need it, but it can only get you so far. And so the dumbest saint, like mentally, academically, whatever, like the saint that just knows the least, knows so much more than the greatest academic atheist, the greatest academic whatever.
Even not atheist, just like person.
Yeah, well, I know I was just using it as an example, but you're right. Like anyone that's not a saint, you know, if Joseph Cupertino, right? He was known for not being smart, and he had a better comprehension of the Trinity than probably any other saint.
It sounds like it. There's the one story that
I don't remember exactly how the story goes, but I think if I remember right, he was talking to a bishop.
Yeah.
And I don't know if the story is like true verbatim or you know whatever, but how I remember it, he's talking to a bishop, and one of the bishops was struggling with the concept of the Trinity. And he's like, we know it's true, but it just doesn't make sense how to explain it. And he had explained it somehow And he's like, oh wow, you're so wise.
Right.
And this is a guy who like failed all of his exams. Like everybody made fun of him for being dumb, but he's just so holy that God bestowed upon him the ability to grasp a concept that really nobody, you cannot grasp the Trinity if you're not given that. That's why there's so many heresies regarding the Trinity. Like almost every single there's a joke out there, I forgot where I heard it, but if you try to explain the Trinity, you're going to become a heretic. Just don't even try. It's like modalism or whatever the other ones are. Anyways, it's just like becoming holy is the number one goal. It's the number one objective we have in this life, to know, love, and serve God. And then accept what he gives you, and he's going to make it work. Sometimes it's hard to do, but we're better off for it.
Oh, certainly. I think like Saint Joseph of Cupertino is very inspiring because in today's world there's all these like formalities that our society expects people to like follow or like measure up to, and it to be like accepted or like loved or to like even bring any type of value. So it's like graduate from school. If you didn't graduate from school, you're like looked down on, and people will not graduate for many different reasons. Sometimes good reasons, sometimes bad reasons, however. But in general, it seems like people are looked down upon when they're not measuring up in today's world to like the norms, the social norms. Like, wait, you didn't go get a 4-year college degree? How dare you, like, not get into debt for that? Or how dare you, like...
How dare you not go into debt?
Right, We might have to edit that word out.
I think I whispered it quiet enough. No,
hopefully. But yeah, I think like for a soul like that to recognize like, well, these were like the gifts and like the specific, like certainly he was a gifted individual, although his gifts didn't necessarily match what society wanted.
Yes.
Right. And so I think that's really
inspiring. It's very simple.
Right.
And I think loving God is very simple.
Oh, certainly. And I think
we overcomplicate it.
Oh yeah.
Big time.
For sure. And like what you're saying earlier a little bit about like social pressures and things, like you can imagine what types of social pressures perhaps he had around him, even in that day and age. But today I think especially, there's all these like types of pressures where like the world in general is going to look down on you or down on people who like step outside of certain norms. We don't have to measure up to a norm just because it's a norm, right?
No, it's a good point. If you think about the saints, there are so many saints, and every single one of them comes from a different walk of life. They had a different mission from God. I mean, you had Joan of Arc, and you had Saint Benedict, completely different in basically every single way, both saints. And you had Saint Francis, you had Saint Moses the Black, one of my favorite saints, absolute. If anybody doesn't know about Saint Moses the Black, like absolute Giga Chad, like he's the greatest. I love him to death.
That actually makes sense, knowing you.
Really?
Yeah.
You know like the story of Moses the Black?
I actually don't.
Dude, okay.
You have to tell me.
This guy. So he was like a gangster basically, in Egypt, and he was like a murderer and everything, and he like, had a gang, and he'd rob things and stuff, and he goes to this monastery, and he's like, getting ready to rob the monastery or whatever, and he's just moved by the holiness of these people. He stops everything, and he like becomes a monk.
Or, like right there.
Yeah.
That's
did I say Benedict? Not Benedictine. I don't know if I said Benedictine. I didn't mean to say that. But it's just a monastery or an abbey, And he wants to change his life and reform it completely. and this one I always get goosebumps, but he was having a really hard time with some of his sins, like giving up some of his sins. Like he didn't want to keep doing them, but it was just like had a weight on him. He couldn't stop doing it, like stealing and stuff like that. And so his abbot takes him up on the roof, and they just sit there all night long, and just watch the night sky. And as the sun rises, he says, Moses, you see, just as the sun disperses light, or disperses the dark from the night, so too does God disperse the sin from your soul. It's not supposed to be like right away. Mm-hmm. It's a process. You have to keep at it. And I was like, that was so motivating. When I was like 19, 20 years old, I was like, dude, what a guy. And then another gang came and attacked the monastery, and he said, I lived by the sword, now I die by the sword. And so he, fought him off as the other monks like left and stuff. It was awesome story. Would definitely be worth telling in more detail at some point. But my point with all this is like all the saints, they come from such different walks of life. Jose Sanchez del Rio, as we talked about the other week, Maximilian Kolbe, Teresa Lisieux. They all are so different, and it's important because God calls us to live a different way, different specific ways. Mm-hmm. The ultimate goal is all the same: to know, love, and serve God. But how we get there and how we achieve that is going to be different for literally every single person on the planet. But our society today, they try to funnel us all into this one. They try to streamline everything. Hey, this is what success looks like. No, success looks like getting to heaven. Yeah. Okay, you're not a success if you don't get to heaven. You could be the richest man in the world, but what does it profit a man if he gains the whole world and loses his soul? Literally nothing. So they streamline us. And I remember being in high school, and they're just pushing everybody to go to college. It's cool. College is good. Nothing wrong with it. And inherently, there may be some bad aspects to modern colleges, but in general, it's a good thing. But they just pushed it so much that everybody was applying to colleges, and a lot of those people did not want to go to college. No motivation. Some of them wanted to be, tradesmen, like their dads were or whatever. And they get accepted to college, and they're just told, good, this is what you need to do. It's like, bro, everybody gets accepted to college. Not everybody, but if you apply to enough schools, you're probably going to get in, and they're just miserable. A lot of them took on a lot of debt and dropped out a couple semesters in, 3-4 semesters in sometimes, or they go right out of college and they don't know or right out of high school, they don't know what they're doing, and it just completely distracts them from what God actually intended them to do. I think we as a community, as a society, as people who have been through this process need to do a lot better job of not pushing and funneling people down one direction, right? There's certainly principles to use to avoid or maybe pursue, but in general, we just need to be a lot better at motivating young men and young women to just find what God is actually calling them to do and help them achieve that. Give them the first step. It might be construction, like you started a construction company. You know what I mean? That's freaking awesome. I would never do that. It's not my, not a construction guy. My dad is, but likewise, you're probably not going to school for conservation biology. I think both of those experiences are very important for what God intended us to see and achieve in our life.
Sure.
It's a little bit of a rant there, but I just get really frustrated at the constant pushing everybody. This is what success looks like. You got to be a doctor, a lawyer, whatever, an engineer. It's like, no, go be a plumber. Who cares? Plumbers have a great life. Right. Electricians have an amazing life. It's not glamorous, but it's awesome.
Yeah, perhaps the grandparents or the parents are pressuring these kids to hey, in our minds we want you to be a lawyer, right? And you're supposed to be this person for the family, and it's perhaps more about their ego, even more than the good of the child. And there's been studies on this. A lot of Asian people, I guess, are committing suicide in colleges because they're so miserable. They're so miserable, and it's the grandparents and the parents putting all this pressure on them to be the next doctor, lawyer, like, and it's very much about like the status of the family and like what you've achieved, and these kids have like forced themselves through these like this process for years sometimes, and then they just kind of give up, and or they'll fail out, or like something won't go right, or they'll succeed but they're very unhappy and they're like, I don't know why. I've heard a lot of that, and people have made studies on that. There's a lot of suicides in colleges for that reason, that social pressure, that standard that like people it seems like they're being forced to measure up to. It's a sad reality, and very unhealthy.
Yeah, it's I knew, unfortunately, several people who took their lives in college. There's one guy, I think it was the year before I got to A&M. He was commander of the band, right? So really, really like a lot of pressure there. I think he was the #1 Air Force cadet in the country. Very squared away guy. He had, I don't know, 4.0 GPA, excellent PT scores. Like on paper, this is like
everyone would want to be this guy.
This is the guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? In every single way. It's not even an exaggeration. Like you couldn't find a fault in his life. But he's encouraging. Yeah, keep doing it. Like you're great. You're great. Like whatever. And it got too much for him, and he swerved off the road. And I think they say maybe he fell asleep at the wheel, but it just doesn't seem like that's actually the case, unfortunately. But then during COVID, I mean, there's 2 guys who took their own lives in the dorms, and that's a whole other thing, because they're already undergoing all this pressure that we're talking about, and then you lock them up in a room for 2 weeks.
Solitary.
Like, sorry, you can't leave. I know you're depressed, but now you can't talk to anybody. So, and if you try, like, you're gonna get disciplined because we don't want to spread COVID. So, they ended it. It's just so sick. It's so sick, and it all could have been avoided, But anyways, it's kind of going down a dark turn. Didn't mean to take, but yeah, the point is, we could be a lot more motivating for each other if we just push people to do what God drives them towards, and not what we view as positive or negative, achievements or whatever. There's so much more to it.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people take certain sides to like explain on this topic, like men don't belong in a factory for like 9 hours doing the same thing. It's like not good for their soul, or like the way society is structured, especially in like certain jobs, it's just very unhealthy. Like people sitting in a cubicle for 8-9 hours, not really talking to people, doing tasks that seem meaningless. Like it seems soul killing, and like how can people really live? So a lot of people hold a certain stance there where society is set up to control people, to enslave people through debt, through their dependence on a yearly salary, which locks them into like a day job that consumes their time and energy, and it takes away their freedom to really truly live. And certainly you can become a saint living that life, for sure, and perhaps it's just an evil that we have to endure in our day, but it seems like there could be ways out of that, and it could just be like encouraging younger people to make better decisions, making better decisions ourselves with how we decide to correspond with grace and like seek out what God is asking. I think it's very edifying when I see fathers who go to work at the same job and have been going to work at the same job for years, doing the same thing, and these men are saints. Certainly, it's very edifying, and they're living an interior life that is so deep and so real, and that can exist in this job that seems it could be soul killing. So there's those different sides that people kind of take on, and I think it's kind of comes down to the individual, I guess. What you're saying earlier, this thing is extremely different from that one, and we each have a particular calling. Everyone does, and it's corresponding with that. So yeah, it's interesting seeing how horrible the society is, and how people are still corresponding with grace. In that.
Yeah, we live in a fallen world, so there's going to be really bad things, and because of God's grace, there's going to be really good things too. If God was not merciful, just everything would be bad. Look what we've done to ourselves. It's only God's grace that makes anything bearable. And I think you're right. There's a few different ways to look at it, and on one hand, a job is a means to an end. It's a means to provide. That's the curse of Adam, and we kind of have to embrace that. And that doesn't mean it's going to be pleasurable. It can be very difficult, but part of being a man is embracing that and grinding it out, because that's how you provide, which is where you get your ultimate fulfillment from.
Yeah, I think we're just get in there real quick. Don't lose your train of thought.
No, I'll try not to.
Yeah, but I think I've noticed men who have extremely easy jobs are very unhappy.
Yes.
I just wanted to throw that out.
No, that's true, because they're not being challenged. A man has to struggle. You have to struggle to grow. I don't know if you're ever into gardening or anything like that, but my dad used to own a nursery, so we were always into that stuff growing up, and it was that funny. But when you plant a tree and it's growing and stuff, you have to prune it back. You have to stress it out in order for it to keep growing and flourishing. So you have to put on a certain amount of stress in order to stimulate that growth. And if you don't do anything, it stagnates its growth. And if you do too much, you just cut the whole tree down, it just dies.
Yeah.
So there's a balance there that you have to have. You have to have some struggle, and that's a really hard thing. That's a really hard thing for me to balance. What's the right amount of responsibilities and obligations to take on? What's the right amount of stress to have in my life? But you have to have some. Otherwise, you're going to be miserable.
Certainly.
It's like the whole you have to sacrifice. You have to struggle to grow in virtue, and you have to fast. You have to pray. These are not easy things, but you have to do them, and it is stressful to a certain extent to grow in virtue in the spiritual life. But so you're right there. I think So part of my point is you have to acknowledge it's a means to an end. That's not your ultimate goal. Your ultimate goal in life or your ultimate mission in life is not the 9-to-5 job you're working. But if you can put it within context of what your goal and your mission is, then it can fit very beautifully over it. And then it's not so miserable, right? But the same people who they develop a habit of just going in, turning on the computer, clocking in, doing their thing, going home, and whatever, eating bonbons and watching Stranger Things or something like that. I don't know, playing some Call of Duty. That is so unfulfilling. So unfulfilling. So you can get your fulfillment partly from another job, another career, and that might be the case for a lot of people, probably most people, or you can get it from outside sources.
Well, I think the world wants the career to be the end all be all.
They want you to identify as your career.
Certainly. Yeah, you ask someone when you're meeting people,
What do you do for work?
Oftentimes, it's always, what do you do? What do you do? And certainly the world wants you to identify yourself to that. Like, who are you? I'm a engineer. You know, and you hear that all the time, and it's like, an engineer.
Yeah, but who are you?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. It's true.
It's very, very interesting to talk to different people and like kind of see how they express that. It's fascinating.
Yeah, and I want to be clear here. I'm not saying that you shouldn't pursue those things. Like, it is objectively a good thing to do, but it's just sad that that's the measuring stick that we judge ourselves and those around us. The first thing you ever hear is, hey, like, where, what's your name? Where are you from? What do you do for work? Right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I guess it makes sense. I'm not like mad about it, but that's like pretty surface level stuff.
Certainly.
Especially if you realize that work really is just a means to an end.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, that's what it is. It can serve other purposes, but its primary purpose is to labor, to provide, and to grow in virtue. And so that's really when you're 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21 years old, and you're looking for what you're going to do with your life, look for those things. How is it going to let you provide, and how's it going to help you grow in virtue? And if you do those two things, you're going to be steered in the right direction as to what your career should be. Whether it is a doctor or a lawyer. Like, we need good doctors and lawyers in this world.
Sure.
We don't have a whole lot of good doctors and lawyers.
Sure.
COVID showed that. And if you've ever met a lawyer, they just play a legal game, right?
Yeah.
So
I got sued once, and that certainly.
Really?
Yeah, that certainly expressed itself.
Dude.
Yeah, it is interesting. I think that with the identification to a career or those things, like, I recently heard a young man expressing, like, he's in his 20s to this other guy, and he was like, hey, I just really feel lost, and I don't know what career, or like, I'm like trying to make these decisions here. And he was like, well, like, you're single, and so you should feel lost because you haven't like locked into your vocation yet. Like, so like any person, I thought that was really wise, and I really liked it. It was like, if you're in your 20s and you're a young man with some ambition and you're not in your vocation and you feel lost, that's a great thing. Like, that's a good thing, because if you didn't, then you're like, what are you going to be working towards? Like hopefully there's like 3 vocations in life, right? Priesthood, religious, and married. So if a young man hasn't like or isn't striving for one of the 3, or hasn't reached that, like, certainly he should feel lost, right? Mm-hmm. So yeah, I thought that's great.
This is kind of on the same topic, but when you started talking about that, you brought me back to something. I don't know if we talked about this before, but the Habsburgs, like the royal family.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so they have a tradition, which is really, really cool. When they die, they have this crypt or something where they're buried, and when one of them dies, they bring the casket, and they're standing outside the door, and I guess it's the head of the house, or I don't know who does it exactly, but they knock on the door, and there's a priest on the inside, and says, like, who seeks entrance to God's house, or something like that. And they say, Emperor so and so, like the king of this and the king of that and the duke of this, and he goes through all of his titles, everything he's ever done, all of his like achievements, yeah. And it says, "Go away, we don't know him." And this is like an emperor, right?
Whoa.
He says, he knocks again. He says, "Who seeks entrance?" And then he goes through and says all the things he's done with his life. So he goes like, he's won this war. He conquered this land. He won this war. He liberated these people, and he brought economic prosperity, and he all the just everything he's ever done. Says, go away, we don't know him. And then they come back and they knock again. It says, who seeks entrance? And they say, whatever their name was, Zita, a poor sinner in need of God's mercy. It says, come and let him rest with God.
That's incredible.
It's man, that's your identity. These are people who are legitimately achievers, in the highest echelons of man, right? Kings and emperors, and the tradition of their family is, this is not our identity. We're poor sinners and we need God's mercy, and that's what brings peace. It's bro, that's beautiful.
Yeah,
that's beautiful.
Yeah, I love that.
And if it's good enough for them, it's good enough for me, because they are way higher than I am.
That's an incredible part of their culture.
Yeah.
That is, it seems like a lot of that is just lost.
Yeah.
And that's a super cool story.
It's
do they still do stuff like that?
I believe so. I'm not totally sure, but I'd seen a video on it. I think of when, I wanted to say Empress Zita died, but that was a long time ago, so I don't remember. But I believe they still do it. Yeah, I believe they do.
Yeah, it's interesting. It seems like when one comes to that realization of who we are, there's a certain amount of self-experience where that realization makes you very relatable to every single human being, and you eventually see everyone as I guess equal, or on a plane that is different from their social role, if that makes sense. So you could sit down with anyone of any status, but you would see them simply as they are, and you would see yourself as you are. And so it simplifies everything, and it makes talking to anyone very simple, and it makes any, I guess, social anxiety or any anxiety really, I suppose, go away and just disappear.
What's true humility? If you have true humility, you're gonna be happy.
Right. That's what true humility is seeing reality, accepting reality. Because pride is one extreme or the other. Either thinking you're less than you are or more than you are. And humility is you are.
You are what God made you. Yeah, dude. You made me think we're not Hindus. The Hindus have a caste system, and that's really pivotal to their framework and their worldview, and we have to dissolve all that. Whether you're a general or a private in the army, your mission, your goal is unto the same end, and it brings you, like you said, to reality, and it's a very beautiful way of looking at the world. It's very Franciscan, I think. I love the Franciscans, but yeah.
Yeah, humility is necessary. It's so necessary. It's something that's really lost. But it's one of the most beautiful virtues.
Are you going to St. Joseph's Table?
Probably not. But
I think Margo, I could hear my phone buzzing over there. I think Margo's from Texas.
Yeah, I don't know. Oh man, we've been on for so long.
I don't even know. Probably an hour. Yeah, an hour. Yeah, she just texted me. I knew that was her.
Okay.
I feel like I should probably go make an appearance.
Yeah, no, for sure. We've been on plenty long.
Plenty long. All right. Well, everybody, hope you got something out of that. Leave your thoughts and your comments below. What do you do for work? That's what everybody really cares about here. That's the only thing that matters in this world, is what you do for work.
And if it's not something you spent 4 years to get, then it's probably worth nothing.
Yeah, exactly. Just as God intended. Okay.
All right.
Bye, guys.
Take care.